so glad you guys are doing this because young sports fans need to know. Cleveland Browns of the 1950s, Otto Graham won a league title or a division title for a decade straight. Bill Walsh brought art to the game of football. They created a system that 3 decades later,
that's West Coast offense all day,
other teams are winning Super Bowls with.
While Democratic presidential candidates debated Sunday night, sports fans, they've been debating since the NFL season kicked off. And while the Broncos and Patriots were frontrunners to their conference, the Arizona Cardinals and Carolina Panthers have surged to the top of the polls with an inspired brand of football.
I would have to say his most impressive coaching job, though, was in 2013. Going 8-8 with a roster that should have gone 3-13.
Getting 8-8 out of a team that pretty much all the experts said was no better at.
While sports fans want to debate whether or not Tom Brady did or didn't receive a competitive advantage by deflating footballs, this court case is about whether or not Roger Goodell has the power to uphold that 4-game suspension and whether or not that 4-game suspension was valid in the first place. That's an issue that's a labor issue with the collective bargaining agreement. That's a little above the pay grade of your average sports talk radio fan that's going to be calling in and debating this with their sports talk radio host.
I'm going to get your opinion because you're the sports expert. Tiger Woods. Can this guy play anymore?
Reality, he's not good at golf. Tiger Woods is not good at golf anymore.
Ouch.
That's just the reality.
Really?
And he got beat.
Do you think he can ever get it back?
He got beat by a 15-year-old amateur yesterday by 3 strokes. Now, does that happen sometimes? Yes. But I'll tell you what, this is an all-time low for Tiger Woods. But let's get to the whole recap because other than El Tigre, there was some great golf being played yesterday. Not only did the Pacific Northwest host the U.S. Open for the first time in its 115 years, but the winner, young Jordan Spieth, also laid new ink in history books for golf fans.
What makes Mike Jones' play so amazing is that you have the greatest show on turf. They would not have won their Super Bowl without a great defensive play.
Led by league MVP Kurt Warner.
Now, the Chargers had to travel on a short week after that crushing loss to the Steelers on Monday Night Football, and now face the league MVP in Rodgers. Well, Phillip Rivers was up for the challenge. All he did was complete 43 of 65 passes. That's a new Chargers record for 503 yards. That's a new Chargers record. But the Chargers record fell to 2-4 on the season after a dramatic finish on the goal line. Chargers lose 27-20.
Meanwhile, the Denver Broncos remain undefeated after using overtime to beat the Cleveland Browns.
Once again, this Denver defense bailed out the struggling offense, and after throwing 3 interceptions, Peyton Manning admitted he would not be going to Vegas after their bye week. He's just not feeling lucky. But the Broncos are lucky to have that defense. They escape with a 26-23 win.
There are now 3 undefeated teams in the NFL, and that's the most this late in the season in NFL history.
In fact, in the Super Bowl era, 21 teams have begun 8-0, and more than half, 12 of them, played in the Super Bowl with 8 hoisting the Lombardi. Pittsburgh netted a field goal with 2 seconds left, and they get the 38-35 win.
It was a tough loss for Raider fans, so my apologies for wearing Steelers colors. I promise I'm not trying to rub it in.
Go back to the show. Great to have you here. What was your reaction to this cover?
You know, Jerry, I'd love to get to a point where women can be great in their field and get recognized for their superior prowess, intelligence, business acumen, and not have to take their clothes off. It's cost the NFL more than $1 billion and some former football players their lives. But the culture is changing, and now so are state laws. In fact, this year, the state law is mandating a change to how athletes are treated after being diagnosed with a concussion. 2 of baseball's most storied franchises have been facing off at one of baseball's most enduring venues. That's right, the Cubs. They're hosting the Dodgers at Wrigley Field.
And they can't even get in the playoffs.
Right.
What happened to the Kings?
It's tough. Well, I think fatigue, Dan, and we know hockey's a very tough sport, and we know that the kings of hockey will soon become the kings of golf.
Football's advancements were started by Paul Brown.
What he did with Otto Graham was he created the passing system in his deliberate desire to throw the football. It was really revolutionary at the time. As though winning 3 championships and outscoring opponents by more than 100 goals weren't enough, at 26-0, the Rams are one of 2 programs in the entire nation to complete a perfect season.
It's just really incredible because everyone is just so dedicated, and you can really feel it in the team. Just the spirit and the overall morale of everyone is very high.
That dedication is not only to the team, but also their families. Many players begin their day working in the fields to support their loved ones.
It's one of the hardest things you have to do. I have to work in the fields too, and it's something not pretty at all. But these kids, they're like superhumans. They work in the fields and then they come to practice and commit.
And don't forget, if you want to know more about the Broncos and Panthers and how they got to the Super Bowl, or learn more about NFL history while raising money for Shelter from the Storm, the Valley's only domestic violence shelter, then please join me at the Ritz-Carlton this Thursday night for Football 101, presented by Jessup Auto Plaza.
We'll have a lot of fun talking football and learning about NFL history. Plus, Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk will join us for the Football 101 panel.
The San Francisco 49ers are not only the greatest dynasty in NFL history,
Coach Walsh and the staff, thanks for setting a superb example.
they're the greatest franchise in the history of mankind.
The world's champion.
Super Bowl 23.
It's such a sight to watch this. It's almost like poetry.
The John Taylor catch. That play was such a perfect encapsulation of the Niners dynasty.
At the 10-yard line, 39 seconds remaining.
They had it designed for Jerry Rice and John Taylor to be opposite each other. And the defense was going to play man. Well, what happened was Jerry Rice shifted. Most of the attention went to Jerry Rice. John Taylor didn't have a single catch all day. His stat line for Super Bowl 23 reads 1 catch, 10 yards, 1 touchdown.
A couple guys followed Rice. One man was on Taylor. He ran a post pattern and Montana hit him in stride.
That to me was the exclamation mark at the end of that dynasty to say this championship wasn't one game. It was a decade of preparation.
How about a 16-17 lead from Blue?
The 49ers, the West Coast offense, changed the game forever. That's why I think they're the greatest dynasty in NFL history.
It's really a fascinating balance between brain and brawn. As any good defensive coach would tell you, an overly aggressive defense will get beat more often than a smart defense that understands what the offense is trying to accomplish. There are 3 basic parts to any defense: the defensive line, linebackers, and the secondary. Now, the defensive line are the biggest bodies of any of the defenders, and they quite literally defend the line of scrimmage. Defensive linemen frequently try to sack the quarterback or tackle the running back for a loss of yards. The linebackers, well, they back up the linemen. Simple, huh? But that's really the best way to think about it. The second line of defense are agile athletes who can bolt sideline to sideline, chasing down running backs, covering tight ends, and the good ones are even fast enough to cover wide receivers for a few yards or rush the quarterback. Now, the third part of any defense is the secondary: cornerbacks and safeties. Cornerbacks are known for their speed, and they cover wide receivers. Meanwhile, safeties are a sort of safety valve for the defense, generally assigned to cover a lot of ground, and they have a variety of skills. In all, with Florida State winning the national title in college last year and the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl with their bruising defense, it's clear that defense is a decisive factor for any successful football team, even if it's not the one fans most talk about.